Hello and welcome along to our Think About It session this week. And we have a very lovely guest joining us, one of our partner coaches. And this is to support Fertility Awareness Week. We've got our lovely coach, Jennifer Elworthy. Jen, welcome.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
You're very welcome. Thank you for coming along. Tienie, hello and welcome and joining us.
Hello everybody. How you guys doing?
For anyone that's new here, this is our weekly snippet of empowered leadership discussions, and we come along every week and just share a little insight around how we can support you in the workplace and become better leaders and more empowered and collaborative leaders in the workplace. So, Jen, welcome along. For those listening, it is Fertility Awareness Week. This is your area of expertise in business. Do you want to just give everyone a little insight into the theme of this year's campaign and the purpose behind it before we dive into the questions?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you said, it's Fertility Awareness Week, and the theme this year is fertility in mind, and it's all about the impact that fertility challenges can have on your well-being and your mental health. And this is absolutely huge. You know, my son, I'm lucky enough to have a son despite all of my my fertility challenges. He's now 7, and I'm still impacted by the kind of trauma really that I went through when I was having recurrent miscarriages and going through my fertility treatment. And it's really, really well documented that women who go through miscarriage, and particularly ectopic pregnancy, as I did, can have PTSD. And you know, my anxiety skyrocketed. I was having panic attacks, and although I can sort of generally manage it now, I still take medication for that. And you know, I've had kind of years of therapy, so I'm in a pretty good place, but it does come back to me every now and again. And so that's, you know, that's a really, really long time to still be impacted by that. And I think it's really important in this kind of context of business and work and mental health to be thinking, what's the role of an employer in that? How can we ease that mental load on a person so that it's not so hard for them and that the trauma doesn't last so long?
Yeah. And I think as well, Jen, and I know because I've watched you deliver lots of stuff about this, and I love it. And I love that support that you push for and encouraging, is it impacts every aspect of a person's life, doesn't it? This isn't a personal issue. This isn't a private female-only issue. This impacts everything so significantly.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel so strongly about this. Infertility is not a women's issue. It's an issue that impacts absolutely everyone. And from a medical perspective, it can be men as well. But from a business perspective, it's everyone in the business.
And that's so important. And that's one why we partnered with you to support us from your area of expertise. But if businesses are really thinking about supporting their people holistically and wholly, they need to be having these conversations and considering this, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, you and I have talked about this lots of times before, but of course this is the right thing to do from a moral, ethical perspective, but it's the right thing to do for your business. People in your business are always going to have children. There's always going to be a time where you know, a man or a woman will go on maternity or paternity leave. So let's just plan ahead. You know, this is going to happen. Let's help people through that journey. Let's be as supportive as we possibly can so that they're really loyal, so that they can still deliver at work, and so that they don't crumble.
Yeah. And that's it, isn't it? There is that, if we support our people from an ethical, moral, but also because they are people, how much better are they going to feel, which will automatically impact your bottom line. And what I'm not sitting saying, do it for the bottom line, do it for your people, and inevitably that will impact a huge aspect of the business.
Yeah, absolutely. That we should do it because, you know, we are decent human beings and we value the people in our business. And I really believe that people in our companies are our only asset, really. Yes, we can kind of produce stuff and sell stuff, but the main asset is the people in the business. And so let's support them as best we can, and then know that that's also going to have a positive business effect.
Are you seeing a change in the conversations that businesses are willing to open up and have around subjects such as fertility?
Absolutely. I think the menopause movement has really opened the door to all of these kind of conversations, whether it's fertility or grief or being a carer, anything like that. I think businesses are now understanding what their employees might be going through their life, and beginning to create that sort of psychologically safe environment. And that's a culture that I always bang on about, that if you value your employees as people, you will have such a productive business. And there are so many stats around that.
So for people, businesses or leaders or managers that are listening in, like, why should they care? Why should they take note? Why should they want to do something about this?
Well, I think it really can impact every sort of level of the business. It's a really important way to sort of foster loyalty, make sure that people are really engaged, that they're feeling really safe at work. So just thinking about that kind of, retaining your top talent. So we know people are always going to go and have babies, whether they have fertility challenges or not. So plan ahead, and this can span from everything from egg freezing, miscarriages and investigations around fertility to potentially IVF treatment, and then into parenting as well. How can we best plan, knowing a lot of our workforce are going to go ahead and do that? How can we keep them? How can we keep this talent that we've invested in? Because, recruitment costs are enormous. It takes a really long time to get someone up to speed. I wish I could find this stat again, but I read it years ago that I think it was Google said an employee only starts paying back to the business after 3 years because it takes so long to get them up to speed. And then they start kind of doing their job, and then they really, really fly and are brilliant. So in terms of retention, it's really, really important to do that. You've got to get that return on investment, not only from the recruitment costs, but also the investment that you're putting into people. And of course, engagement, you want your people to be brilliant, to want to be there, to not take sick days. There are some stats around fertility treatments, and the CIPD and the IVF network did some research, and they said that 70% of employees experiencing fertility challenges took sick leave. So that's not planned time off. And the impact of that on a business is enormous. And actually 19% of employees said they considered leaving their job because of the experience at work in relation to fertility challenges, treatment and investigation. So, those kind of stats are really, really huge. I think another really important thing is this sort of attracting of talents. And, some businesses might say, oh, this doesn't impact our workforce. We're mostly men, or, our team are much younger or older. But actually, we know there's a really big sort of talent gap that we need to fill. And I think the next generations coming through of employees are going to look to companies who have been good, that they're doing this kind of ethical, moral, supportive stuff.
I do think the landscape, and Tinie, it'd be good to hear your thoughts, the landscape of the working world is changing at a dramatic speed, the quickest speed that I've seen, and what people are looking for in employers is vastly different, and they have to be leading the way to attract and retain top talent, and this is a way for them to do it.
It's the whole element of creating great experiences for our people. Even if they just shift from comply to commit, it increases productivity by 12 to 15%, which is a measurable stat if you make people feel comfortable. And men in particular are also worried about their partners and wives that are expecting and having miscarriages and aren't sleeping at night because they're worried about that. And how excited are you when someone does fall pregnant and gives birth to a child? It's a great time in your life as a male and as a man in a relationship. But also, we go through the trauma the same as the partner goes through in the front end of building to that excitement. And businesses need to support that. And I get so frustrated, Jen, like you and Kirsty, when people say, oh, we're all men and blah. Men are changing. Men are changing their perspective. Men are actually becoming partners and supporting partners in any relationship, whether it's menopause, fertility, wellness, gender orientation, supporting people when they come out and they're gay, so it's all of those things. Men are changing. And that's the drum that I want to bang.
But also, it could be a male issue, right? Like it could be
Yeah.
the man.
Yeah.
It could be them
Yeah.
going through that, and
Yeah.
it's that almost assumption that this is
Yeah.
a women's problem, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, when we think about fertility challenges, we think about the woman, and then we think about a cisgender couple, a heterosexual couple.
Yes.
And actually, there are pathways to parenthood for all different types of people. And it's really important that businesses are inclusive and support that, and don't just think about the women in their business. It's impacts absolutely everyone who wants to become a parent. And obviously for same-sex couples, it's a really different pathway to parenthood, and they potentially might need even more support, or solo intended parents would need more support or different support.
Absolutely. Just something Tinie said, and this is, I know we've spoke about it before, Jen, so I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm sure we'll know. When Tinie said about it's moving people from complying to actually wanting to actively create these kinds of policies and conversation, because the legislation around this, it's not legal, is it, that they have to support? And that to me is crazy. Just give me a little insight into that element.
Yeah, so the analogy I always use, because I have had my teeth straightened, is Invisalign. So if I am employed and I have a appointment at my dentist to have my Invisalign fitted, that's not sick leave, that's not paid time off for medical treatment. It's the same if you are going for fertility treatment. But infertility, and I really don't like that word, I tend to use fertility challenges, but it is an important word. And that's because the World Health Organization recognize it as a medical condition. So employers in this country are not giving paid time off to people who need medical treatment. Hopefully that's going to change soon. There's a bill going through Parliament at the moment. I think it's on its second reading, and hopefully that will begin to change. But yeah, currently
that's mind-blowing, isn't it? That is crazy. So when we talk about people looking for better employers and the benefits and rewards, people are looking for people who are being proactive and want to support their people because they care, not because a legislation's being passed and they have to. Do you know, that's the difference, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a huge difference. So with the law, once a person is pregnant, they are protected by pregnancy laws. So if you have a miscarriage, you are also entitled to time off, sick leave. But that's generally 2 weeks, and it's not enough, really.
Yeah, that's madness, isn't it? So when we think about the support and fertility support in an organisation, where does the responsibility sit? Is this a HR policy? Is this a people policy? Like, what is it?
I think it's everyone. So I think the culture needs to be set by the leaders, the creators of the business. And it's their role to say, we value you all. We are a psychologically safe environment. We want you to talk about the things that are impacting your work. I had a question this week from someone saying, when is the right time to talk to your employer about fertility treatment or challenges? And I said, it depends on the person. But as soon as you feel like something outside of your work is affecting work, it's time to talk to your employer.
Yeah.
And obviously it's different for everyone, and the support level might not be there, but that's the time. So if someone feels sort of open about it, the leaders need to set that culture that we understand we're here for you, bring these challenges to us, and we'll help you work through them. And then I think it's HR's role to sort of lay it out within the company handbook, to do the policies to ensure that it's enforced, all of those kind of things. And then I think it's for everyone else, people managers, just colleagues, to understand what somebody might be going through, and education is really important there. And I think, so many managers they're good at their job, and then they get put into a manager role, and there's no training. They don't know how to be a manager. They just knew how to do their job really well.
Jen, we're singing from the same hymn sheet.
I know we are. We always are. It happened to me, and I was a terrible manager the first time I became one. And then I luckily had a lot of training and support. But the thing I would always say to managers, whether you've had manager training or whether you've had kind of fertility awareness training, is to listen. You don't have to know all the answers. Just listen and offer support.
And I think that's there's a fear, isn't there, of people not knowing how to treat people or how to have those conversations. What are the biggest challenges that you come across as to why businesses don't want to be fertility friendly and want to do all of this lovely stuff?
I think there's all the usual ones of money and time and, those kind of things. But I think one of the biggest ones, and we touched on this earlier, is that they just don't think it affects them. Whether that's because of the gender of their workforce or the age of their workforce, or they just don't understand that actually infertility impacts 1 in 6 people. So, in an office, there's going to be plenty of people who are raising their hands to that. Obviously, they're not raising their hands because most of the time they don't feel able to. It was, when I had my first miscarriage, it was incredibly hard for me to call my boss and say, I'm in hospital and I'm not coming back to work for a while, and this is the reason why. Because I actually had an amazing experience at work and went on to be promoted while I was going through all this, but I could have been discriminated against.
And I imagine that experience is probably the minority of people having that experience versus the general experience people are having, unfortunately. So what can people do to be, for people listening, if they want to take action, they want to take steps to becoming more fertility friendly, they want to support their people within this area, where do they even start? Other than reaching out to you or to us.
Absolutely.
Where did they
reach out to us? So I will bang on about this forever, but creating psychological safety. So do your employees genuinely feel comfortable talking about their personal lives or things that may impact their work? And so you've got to demonstrate concern for your employees as people. Just little things like owning up to mistakes just makes them feel safe, and that, it's okay, stuff happens. And just having positive conversations and discussing these topics that may have been taboo before. And listening is always something I'll talk about, that you don't need to fix, you don't need to know what to say, but just listen and then offer support. And another really great technique is to mirror language. So I use the term fertility challenges, but if I'd said infertility or something like that, then you just use that language: miscarriage, baby loss, whatever it is, just mirror it. And then, of course, education as well. So there was a study at Manchester Met University that said employees experiencing infertility regarded their managers as especially crucial to the provision of appropriate support. So it really does show that if we really, really want to support employees through this, having that manager training at any managerial level is really important. And then finally, I just say to signpost support, does your healthcare cover this? Do you have a sort of counselling service? Is there a fertility ambassador in your business, or external resources as well?
Yeah. So even the signpost and creating a policy, it's not expensive, is it? It just takes time. Like, they don't need to have. And I think that what I got from that is like that almost multi-layered support. So it depends what's going on in the business. It depends how much you want to do. But there is something everyone can do at just a low cost, isn't there? That signposting piece. Even just researching.
Yeah, absolutely. I always get into trouble saying this, but I don't think a business has to pay for fertility treatment. It's wonderful if they do, if their healthcare covers that. But there are a lot of businesses that just would never be able to afford to. I do some pro bono work for B Corps, for example, and they just wouldn't be able to cover that kind of cost as much as I'm sure they would love to. But if they can offer the support, the flexibility, the guidance that's needed, that makes up for so much.
Yeah. And also the work that you do isn't just, I know you work coaching one-to-one with individuals, but you also support from a education piece for managers, for leaders, for businesses, don't you? So there might, the one-to-one coaching might seem really expensive or out of reach, but actually educating the organization or leaders within it is more achievable and accessible. And I think if you look at those costs and those challenges that we talked about earlier, the outweighing balance of those costs and that investment almost seems like a drop in the ocean, doesn't it?
Oh yeah,
on return.
absolutely. Yes, yeah. I mean, I think the return on investment of working with us would be huge.
Yeah, absolutely. So for anyone listening who wants to go and find out more, obviously to come and see us or chat to us, but is there anywhere online they can go and get more information? Or someone might be struggling right now, listen to this, where could we send them? Where would you send them just to have a look at some research, have a look at some resources for themselves?
Yeah, well, anyone wants to contact me on LinkedIn, they can. I've got a sheet that lists out a load of different really, really great resources. But going to, for example, the IVF network's really great. They've got some interviews. It's a sort of online video library of interviews with leading experts. The Fertility Network is a charity, and that offers loads of support. Miscarriage Association, LGBT Mummies is amazing as well for anyone in that community who's thinking about, you know, parenthood and kind of the situations that they're going through with fertility. There's also the British Infertility Counselling Association, which is really, really brilliant as well. And there are loads, just Google it, but there are absolutely loads, you know, male infertility as well. Lots going on, lots of support available.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much. And that's been really helpful just to have that snapshot of what people can do, how they can get involved, and that it's not just a female problem, it's an everybody problem, and that it does really impact the workplace. Any final words, Tienie?
No, the stat 1 in 6 people at work, you know, I've got fertility challenges, to use your words, Jen. That's a phenomenal stat. That's it's anything, you know, that is higher than 10% needs to be addressed.
Absolutely,
it really does. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us. We'll put the links to Jen and to her LinkedIn and to her website in the show notes, and we'll try and capture some of those resource recommendations that you said also. But for anyone listening, go and check Jen out. She's brilliant. Connect with her, and we'll see you next week. Brilliant. Thank you so much.